We're gathered on the steps of the Oklahoma State Capitol today to read our complaint with the United States Justice Department and its appeal regarding the lack of restroom access for our son at the Oklahoma State Capitol building. This was filed May 1st, 2021. Attached are exhibits, various documents, and correspondence dating from January 17th, 2020 to present. Maxwell A. Beasley, also known as Max, my 4-year-old son, is disabled. He was born with spina bifida, hydrocephalus, and Arnold-Chiari malformation 2. He has neurogenic bowel and a trabeculated bladder and requires clean intermittent catheterization every 4 hours. He needs caregiver assistance in the restroom and has outgrown the baby changing stations and their standard weight limit of 50 pounds. While at the Oklahoma State Capitol, Maxwell needs a private, safe, and appropriate place for me, my husband, or caregiver to change his diaper. Currently, the only appropriate option is a medical table in the doctor of the day room. However, this room is not open year-round, only during legislative session, and the hours it's open to the public are limited. In the event the room is closed or being utilized by an individual that is injured or ill, the only locations in the building for us to change Maxwell's diaper is on the dirty floor in the accessible stall, in the women's or men's restroom, on the dirty floor in the family restroom. Another unacceptable option is to leave the building and return to our car to change his diaper in the parking lot, or leave the building and return home, which is what we often resort to. Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act prohibits public entities such as the Oklahoma State Capitol from discriminating against qualified individuals on basis of disability. Specifically, the ADA states no qualified individual with a disability shall, by reason of such disability, be excluded from participation in or be denied the benefits and services, programs, and activities of a public entity, or be subjected to discrimination by any such entity. Furthermore, Title II requires public entities to take reasonable measures to remove architectural and other barriers to accessibility. As such, public entities must make reasonable modifications in policies, practices, or procedures to avoid discrimination, unless making the modifications would fundamentally alter the nature of the service, program, or activity. Maxwell is a victim of ongoing discrimination at the Capitol, and I believe there's possible political interference. Max's law was drafted in 2019 for the 2020 legislative session because my husband and I asked our state representative for change. The restroom access to certain state-owned buildings covered under Title II of the ADA. Max's law has overwhelming support in the legislature, and the chain of events that have occurred since filing the first ADA grievance with the ADA coordinators at the Oklahoma State Capitol will reveal an immediate stall in communication between our family and many of those at the Capitol. In the event political interference isn't at play, I find the incompetence of both ADA coordinators troubling, and the legislature's lack of empathy and failure to address a known barrier to tolerate or sit idly by while such discrimination against Maxwell and our disabled community even more concerning. You will find that I've exercised many hours of my time and put forth great effort in my research to prove my advocacy efforts for Maxwell's access worthy. I found out and suggested solutions, a location for the table, and also provided many options in which tables would be appropriate, and I offered an estimate for their cost. Over the next decade, our state spent $250 million restoring and updating our Capitol building, and I've been told that less than $3,000 cannot be spent or found in the budget to install a table to provide much needed access for Maxwell and other disabled Oklahomans. Max's law is a constituent-driven bill. We asked our legislature to acknowledge Maxwell's civil rights are being violated, to acknowledge a real societal problem, to address an issue that affects thousands of Oklahomans and their families, and to be disregarded and his access so blatantly ignored by the ADA coordinators and the bill blocked for no real reason, you might imagine our family's frustration. I have spent many sleepless nights at my desk searching for answers. I've often questioned my own sanity through this process. How can something that's so clear to understand be so very hard to gain help for? No one wants to be on the dirty floor in a public restroom. No one would find it easy to transfer a loved one from a wheelchair to the floor and back up again. No one would find it fair to leave a building for restroom needs, basic human needs. No one would want their pants off naked and on a display while in a car in a public parking lot, subjecting them and their loved one to extreme weather conditions. No one would tolerate this or find it acceptable. Filing this complaint with the United States Department of Justice is the last resort to advocate for Max's restroom rights at this Oklahoma State Capitol, and I'm asking that the United States Department of Justice persuade the Capitol to fall in compliance with Maxwell's rights under the ADA. Have efforts been made to resolve this complaint through the internal grievance procedure of the government, organization, or institution? Yes. Please see Exhibits 10 through 24. I have filed 2 ADA grievances with the Oklahoma State Capitol's ADA coordinators for both the House of Representatives and the Senate. The first on March 13th of 2020 was completely ignored and unanswered, and another on February 11th, 2021. Within both grievances, I asked that the barrier be removed by providing restroom access for Maxwell. The barrier at the Capitol remains ignored. You will find that I have spent hundreds of hours advocating for his rights while at the Capitol. I've exercised great diligence and used various forms of communication and explored all options to obtain access for Maxwell at our Capitol building. I am very tired. I'm exhausted, and quite frankly, I feel defeated. Maxwell has rights and deserves space be held for his basic human needs while in a public building. Recently, the Oklahoma Disability Law Center agreed to help us and sent a letter to both ADA coordinators outlining Maxwell's rights under the ADA and requested a walkthrough of the building to view the Doctor of the Day room and to also possibly find an alternate appropriate location for a height-adjustable universal changing table that would also be available and open to disabled visitors during normal business hours to accommodate Maxwell's restroom needs while visiting the building. See Exhibit 27. My list of exhibits. On January 17, 2020, Max's Law, an act creating the Oklahoma Universal Changing Stations Act, named after Maxwell, was introduced by our state representative Mickey Dollins in the second session of the 57th Legislature and assigned bill number House Bill 3952. The bill was drafted as our family's request and introduced on behalf of Maxwell and all other disabled Oklahomans needing restroom access in state-owned buildings. On January 20th, 2020, I sent all 151 of our legislators an email exactly like the one I sent Representative Kevin West. I've attached a one-page document about Maxwell, House Bill 3952, and several other documents as listed in my email that can be provided to the U.S. Justice Department if necessary. February 5th, 2020, I sent an email to Mr. Trait Thompson, manager of the Oklahoma Capitol Restoration Project. I copied Representative Mickey Dollins and Representative Rusty Cornwell, then Vice Chair of the Business and Commerce Committee, asking for help if he could please suggest a good location where a table could be placed. I included price quotes and pictures that can be provided if necessary. On February 6th, 2020, I promptly received an email in response from Mr. Trait Thompson suggesting that the Doctor of the Day room would allow space for a height-adjustable universal changing table. On February 12, 2020, House Bill 3952 passed the Business and Commerce Committee with unanimous support of all 14 members of the committee, which included Representative Kevin West. On February 21st, 2020, I sent an email to Representative Kevin West and all other members of the committee thanking him for his continued support, and I included pictures and options of suggested tables. The pictures can be provided upon request. On March 6, 2020, I sent all legislators an email asking them for help to fix the broken buttons to the automatic doors and again asked for help with Maxwell's restroom access while at the Capitol. I attached this 2017 Disability Status Report for Oklahoma and quotes for universal adult-sized changing tables. All can be provided upon request. On March 9th, 2020, I hand-delivered to all legislators our Lieutenant Governor Matt Pinnell and our Governor J. Kevin Stitt a challenge to imagine that, outlining the struggle we face as a family with a disabled loved one needing caregiver assistance in the restroom, and how we believe the lack of restroom access while visiting the Oklahoma State Capitol building deserves all of their attention. I attached a picture of Maxwell near our car in the accessible parking space in front of our Capitol building. This is where I changed Maxwell in the event the Doctor of the Day room is closed. It's our mobile changing station until better accommodations are available. On March 10th, 2020, the Oklahoma House of Representatives voted 73-19 in favor of House Bill 3952. 8 were excused from voting. You'll find that Representative Kevin West was one of the many that voted in favor of the bill. Max's Law was on its way to the Senate to be assigned a committee when COVID-19 hit our state. March 11th, 2020, I mailed a letter to Mr. Mike Mazie, then Secretary of the Budget. He and I spent quite some time discussing Max's Law in person earlier that day. My letter was in response to our conversation. On March 13th, 2020, I mailed my first ADA grievance to Jennifer Shockley, ADA Coordinator for the House of Representatives, and Brian Phillips, ADA Coordinator for the Oklahoma State Senate, asking for private, safe, and appropriate restroom access for Maxwell. I never received a response from either. From this point forward, you will find dereliction of duty, blatant discrimination, incompetence, and possible political interference after filing an ADA grievance with the Oklahoma State Capitol. On March 16, 2020, I sent an email to all House members that had voted in favor of House Bill 3952, thanking them for their support. I mentioned I had formally contacted the Capitol about its barriers and lack of accessibility. On March 17, 2020, the Oklahoma State Capitol building closed due to COVID-19. Employees of the building and all legislators were working remotely, and the public was not allowed in the building. On January 19, 2021, Max's Law was reintroduced by Representative Mickey Dollins in the first session of the 50th Legislature and assigned House Bill number HB 1579. February 1st, 2021, I hand-delivered a letter to all members of the House and Senate. I specifically asked for help getting a table at the Capitol and for support for Max's Law. On February 8th, 2021, I sent an email to all legislators. The email highlighted that Representative Mickey Dollins had added or other similar private facility to the definition of universal changing station to accommodate more options for placement of tables in rooms such as the Doctor of the Day room. I included pictures of the table that was recently installed at the Oklahoma Children's Hospital at OU Health, the first state-owned building. The table was installed after a similar request from our family for a private, safe, and appropriate place to change Maxwell while visiting the hospital. Once I mentioned the barrier at the hospital and what I believe to be Maxwell's rights under the ADA, the hospital agreed to the table and began making plans. Several other buildings in Oklahoma City have followed their lead. 12 buildings are now installing universal-size changing tables for visitors like Max who need access to restrooms. On February 9th, 2021, I sent an email to Representative John Eccles, Majority Floor Leader and for the House of Representatives. Representative Eccles was a co-signer and supporter of Max's Law in the 2020 legislative session. Also included was Representative Emily Virgin, Democratic Minority Leader. I contacted them because they are in leadership roles, and I asked them both for help and direction once again, and to help pick out the color of the table, and that its estimated cost was only $2,345. Mr. Trait Thompson had found the Doctor of the Day room, and I needed assistance getting the help this issue demanded. We needed a table ordered in the Doctor of the Day room for another similar location in the Capitol, open to all during regular business hours. On February 11th, 2021, I sent an email to Senator Julia Kurt, another great supporter of the bill in the Senate, and I copied Representative Mickey Dollins. I attached my first ADA grievance sent to the ADA coordinators at the Oklahoma State Capitol on March 13th, 2020. Attached is the Oklahoma Senate's grievance procedure for the Americans with Disabilities Act, downloaded from the Oklahoma Senate's website. The House of Representatives has an accessibility page with directions on where to mail an ADA grievance. On February 11th, 2021, I emailed and mailed by first-class mail letters to both Jennifer Shockley and Brian Phillips, the ADA coordinators for the Capitol, and I copied Representative Mickey Dollins, Representative Emily Virgin, and Senator Julia Kurt. I asked for reasonable temporary accommodations until a permanent solution could be put in place. On February 16th, 2021, Max's Law had been assigned to the General Government Committee. I sent a heartfelt email to Representative Kevin West, Chair of the General Government Committee, pleading for continued support for the bill and to please hear the bill before his committee and to help with temporary accommodations until something more permanent could be installed. Earlier that day, or on the day prior, Representative Mickey Dollins informed our family by phone that he was told by Representative Kevin West that the bill would not pass through his committee and Max's Law would die on his desk even after Representative Dollins offered to strike title on the bill. By striking title, any legislator during the course of the bill would have opportunity to ask for data or change the bill in any way for any reason. Representative Kevin West claimed he needed a clean bill and the state did not have the finances or revenue for Max's law. Also, Representative Mickey Dolenz mentioned the political climate of the Capitol was possibly at play and that many bills introduced by Democrats were being ignored by Republicans in leadership. Representative West never responded to my request for help and refused to negotiate any specifics of the bill with our state representative, Mickey Dolenz. On February 17, 2021, I sent an email to Mr. Matt Robinson with the Oklahoma State Medical Association regarding the Doctor of the Day room. I copied several to include Representative Mickey Dolenz, Representative Emily Virgin, Senator Julia Curt, Representative Kevin West, and both ADA coordinators Jennifer Shockley and Brian Phillips. I attached pictures of the table installed at the Oklahoma Children's Hospital and the freestanding medical table located at the Doctor of the Day room at the Capitol, and it's being held together with duct tape. Again, I ask that leaders and known supporters of the bill come around a table to find a solution. From what I understand, the Oklahoma State Medical Association and the Oklahoma State Capitol have a shared space agreement for the Doctor of the Day room. I then forwarded that email to Ms. Katie Warden, a staff attorney for the Oklahoma Disability Law Center, asking her for help to help us begin effective, productive communication and to gain restroom access for Maxwell Law at the Oklahoma State Capitol. I never received a response from the Oklahoma State Medical Association. Attached is the Doctor of the Day Room program fact sheet. See hours of operation on page 1. On February 17, 2021, I gathered as much correspondence as I could organize at the time and emailed Ms. Warden something similar to what I've sent you in this complaint. Numerous requests for Maxwell's access to a dignified space for his restroom needs while at the Capitol. It wasn't until I organized all the correspondence over the last 468 days and formed this timeline of events that incompetence was so very apparent, or that possible political persuasion and interference could explain the delay in barrier removal, and that it could be included in this disability discrimination complaint with the United States Department of Justice. On February 19, 2021, I received the only piece of correspondence from Mr. Brian Phillips regarding my February 11, 2021 ADA grievance, stating that he received our request and it was under review. I have not heard any further communication from Mr. Phillips. On February 23, 2021, I received and responded to an email from Ms. Jennifer Shockley regarding my February 11, 2021 ADA grievance. She asked that we give 24-hour notice before you plan to visit. I will be sure that the room is available for your use during that time. You can read my response later to that day and how we believe Ms. Shockley's response and suggested solution was discriminatory and offered no real solution, only more barriers to Maxwell's access to the building. I blind copied Ms. Katie Warden at the Oklahoma Disability Law Center, and I have had no further contact with Ms. Shockley. I find it very hard to believe that both ADA coordinators display such incompetence. It's what led me to believe political persuasion is at play due to the nature of the building and those who gather here. I'm left with many questions, and in the event Maxwell didn't have his name on a piece of legislation advocating for the same access, would our request have gone ignored so long? Max's law originally died on Representative Kevin West's desk on February 26, 2021. Representative Dolenz will introduce Max's law again in the 2022 legislative session, but our family has lost faith in our democratic process, and the decision to file this complaint has weighed extremely heavy on my husband and I. On March 1, 2021, House Bill 2085 passed the Oklahoma House floor, a bill requiring all buildings owned by the state of Oklahoma to be branded with "In God We Trust" signs to be displayed in places we can all see when entering the building. A bill that helps absolutely no one in Oklahoma, but with a fiscal impact of $8,500,000. Representative Kevin West's reasoning for killing Max's law was that the state of Oklahoma didn't have the finances or revenue for changing tables for disabled individuals in our publicly funded buildings, tables that would remove a barrier and provide full access to the restrooms needs of all in our state. However, he and so many others believe that the state of Oklahoma has money for signs for state-owned buildings. It's hard to see House Bill 2085 and the 13 co-signers for such a thing. But no, not one legislator hopped on as a co-signer for Max's law this year. If the Oklahoma State Capitol can't afford a $2,345 table for disabled visitors, our state shouldn't be spending money on signs. That's fiscally irresponsible. House Bill 2085 passed the Senate and is headed to the governor's desk. On April 26, 2021, I emailed Ms. Katie Warden with the Oklahoma Disability Law Center asking if she believed filing a complaint with you, the United States Department of Justice, regarding the blatant discrimination and possible interference would be appropriate. She agreed. Later that day, on April 26, 2021, Katie Warden, staff attorney for the Oklahoma Disability Law Center, sent a letter in support for our pursuit for Maxwell's restroom access at the Oklahoma State Capitol. In this letter, it is made clear that rights are granted to Max under the ADA. She asked for a walkthrough of the Capitol building with both ADA coordinators and myself to encourage productive communication about Maxwell's restroom access while in the building, in hope for a real resolution that helps Maxwell and other disabled visitors needing private, safe, and appropriate access for any restroom need. For additional thought, I would like to draw the United States Department of Justice attention to the Bathrooms Accessible in Every Situation or Babies Act of 2016. I believe all Americans deserve a private, safe, and appropriate place for restrooms in all buildings covered under Title II and Title III of the ADA, not just federal buildings that are constructed, altered, or acquired by the administrator or general services. And we need to be thinking of all citizens and restroom needs, not just babies, when we plan the future. Although I believe service animals need restroom access in airports, it is unconscionable that service animals have more rights and federal protections than my son or any disabled American does in our airports. I'm proud to say that the Will Rogers World Airport in Oklahoma City is one of 12 other buildings mentioned above that will install a height-adjustable changing table because our family asked for restroom access for Maxwell and all other disabled individuals traveling through our state. When 3 states enacted laws similar to Max's law, Arizona, California, New Hampshire, and with 12 others joining Oklahoma to introduce state legislation, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Iowa, Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Wyoming, Wisconsin, I believe the issues deserve the federal government's attention and the consideration, and that height-adjustable universal changing tables be included when the 2010 ADA standards for accessible design are updated to allow for access in a family restroom or other private similar facility, so that families like mine do not have to choose between staying home or participating in society. Universal design benefits all members of society, men caring for babies, women caring for grown men, the elderly caring for younger loved ones, and vice versa. I've attached the bills from 3 other states and have enacted legislation, and also bills from 11 other states that have introduced legislation. In Oklahoma City, the Science Museum Oklahoma and the Oklahoma Children's Hospital at OU Health both installed a table, and several other places of public accommodation have assured me they're planning to do so in the near future. The Will Rogers World Airport project will be complete and a table located at Gate 20 this October after a terminal expansion is complete. The Oklahoma City Convention Center will have full access to a family restroom because of the help and attention from the Special Projects Manager and ADA Coordinator for the City of Oklahoma City. Both agreed that our brand new $288 million convention center needs a table. They're installing 2. They've also assured me that many other buildings in Oklahoma City undergo renovation will have one as well. The director of the Metropolitan Library System has assured both the Belle Isle and Almonte Library will have a table after renovations. The Civic Center Music Hall will have a table after its renovation. Scissortail Park will follow Ruby Grant's lead and install a cement bench in its family restroom, so disabled visitors needing caregiver assistance will have a space to change a loved one while visiting the park. Recently, the ADA coordinator for the City of Oklahoma City and I agreed that new building codes would benefit Oklahoma City, and together, along with other leaders in our city government, have come together, and we recently asked the Oklahoma City Building Code Commission for a new city ordinance similar to the ordinance recently adopted by Kansas City, Missouri, and Jacksonville, Florida. The new ordinance is in the process of being drafted, and once it's drafted and several eyes have had an opportunity to look it over for additional thought and input, I plan to present it before the Oklahoma City Council for approval. Many people are unaware of the lack of restroom access, and once this issue is brought to light, it is so very hard to unsee and disregard. I want to thank you for your time and consideration, and any help you can offer our family to gain restroom access for Maxwell at the Oklahoma State Capitol that he so desperately needs and deserves. The appeal to my complaint filed July 16th of 2020 with the United States Department of Justice. Attached are 3 videos, 2 documents, and 2 images for your review. Please review, and we need help. I'm writing in response to case number 73199-KVD regarding Maxwell A. Beasley, a minor, and his lack of restroom access at the Oklahoma State Capitol building. On May 6, 2021, I submitted a complaint to the United States Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division, and on August 19, 2021, I received notice that the United States Department of Justice decided not to take further action. Recently, I inquired whether a new complaint was warranted due to the new developments and ongoing discriminatory practices and retaliation by several members of our Oklahoma Legislature. It was suggested by a woman by the name of Kulani at the United States Department of Justice that I file an appeal by email. I received my son's civil rights. I believe my son's civil rights and others too are being violated at the Oklahoma State Capitol. Please take a moment and watch these 3 videos. The link to Max's visit on July 23, 2021, 2 months after temporary accommodations should have been in place by 5 attorneys. We were there with the Boy Scouts and were separated from our group. They were all aware of our advocacy efforts and were not expecting what happened. It overshadowed our trip for a short bit, which wasn't fair to any of the kids that were present with us that day. It was 93 degrees high noon, half of which are Chris Kennedy's constituents. Our pack and troop meet in his district. Another reason I believe retaliation took place because we go to church and scouts with many who have asked for his support. On June 9, 2022, several Oklahoma Highway Patrolmen, Sergeant-at-Arms, and state employees have expressed how ridiculous and discriminatory this all is. I'm glad Max wasn't with me when Ty and I asked the Chief Sergeant-at-Arms of the Senate, Adam Kane, on the following Monday for help. We were turned away. I believe Max could have been spared more discrimination on the following Friday had he taken time to do his job. Please see how a whole group of students walked to a room for restroom use, and I'm waiting there for 7 minutes to obtain a key to a clinic. That is not equal access and participation. Again, the following Friday, Max was with us and our friends, and 4 people were brought to the attention he needed restroom accommodations while advocating for his equal access. The key had to be brought in from OMES because there was no key to the clinic available. To pick up where we left off with the complaint, on May 25, 2021, I met with attorneys from the Oklahoma Disability Law Center at the Oklahoma State Capitol, and together we walked through several representatives at the building: Chelsea Smith, an attorney representing the House of Representatives, Chief House of Staff Jason Sutton, and all parties who attended the meeting agreed upon temporary accommodations and also a possible permanent location where a height-adjustable universal table could be installed to provide equal restroom access and participation to all visitors of the Capitol, regardless of ability, to put an end to state employees directing visitors to the floor in the restroom and to stand by complacent while visitors return to a vehicle for toileting needs of the loved ones. On May 26, 2021, Roseanne Duplon, an attorney with the Oklahoma Disability Law Center, sent an email to Senator Greg Treat, pro temp of the Senate. He refused to attend that meeting and copied many within the Senate and other attorneys with the Oklahoma Disability Law Center. On August 11, 2021, Senator Greg Treat's counsel, Sam Fulkerson with Ogletree and Deacons, responded, denying the need for Oklahomans to gain equal access and participation in our Capitol building. On February 7, 2022, 2 bills were introduced in the second session of the 58th Legislature by our State Representative Mickey Dollins. House Bill 3015 would have brought height-adjustable universal changing tables to 8 of our Oklahoma visitor centers to include the Oklahoma State Capitol building, a bill that had great bipartisan support from both chambers, our Oklahoma Tourism Department, and Oklahoma's Lieutenant Governor Matt Pinnell. House Bill 1579, Max's Law, was introduced and would have brought much-needed restroom access to the 131 state-owned buildings. House Bill 1579 was again killed by Representative Kevin West with no reasoning to offer our family or his constituents. He refused to let his committee hear the bill. Representative West voted in favor of HB 3952 in the 2020 legislative session, and he, along with many others, are still upset with our family for filing an ADA grievance in 2020 and again in 2021. On February 21, 2021, House Bill 3015 was heard in the Natural Resources and Regulatory Services Subcommittee, where it received unanimous support from all members. Later that day in the hallway, our family encountered Senator Greg Treat as he and his family passed. I asked why he was fighting Max's restroom access at the Oklahoma State Capitol and that the current situation was not equal access and participation. He told me he believed Max does have equal access at the Capitol and walked away from us. He has never once agreed to speak with me personally about Max being directed to the floor in the Capitol for 516 days, or for the various other times we were forced to change Max in the parking lot of the Capitol in the back of my van to avoid the restroom floor. Connor Goolsby was discriminated against that day by a state employee when she asked where his mother put his urine. I do not believe having to bring attention or needing to ask for a key to a public restroom is equal access. I do not believe a policy that encourages only disabled visitors to carry body fluids in a bag in a public building to dispose of it in a restroom is equal access or participation. I do not believe state employees or volunteers should be asking visitors in a public building where body fluids are discarded. It is not appropriate. The clinic at the Capitol is not a restroom. On March 3, 2022, House Bill 3015 was then heard in the Appropriations and Budget Committee and received unanimous support with no questions from any committee members. On March 23, 2022, House Bill 3015 was heard and passed the House floor with overwhelming support. 9 members voted against the bill. Representative Chris Kennedy voted in favor of Max's law, House Bill 3952 in 2020 legislative session, which would have brought 130 tables to the Oklahoma State buildings prior to our ADA grievance mentioned in my original complaint, only to vote against House Bill 3015, requiring only 8 tables this year. I believe many Oklahoma State legislators are retaliating against our family and doing all they can to block change in Oklahoma and also equal access in the building. On March 28, 2022, House Bill 3015 was introduced in the Senate by Senator Julia Curt. It was assigned to the Health and Human Services Committee, where later Senator Paul Rosino, as chair of the committee, killed the bill with no explanation offered other than it would set precedent for equal access. Blatant ableism. I believe Senator Paul Rosino refused to hear the bill out of retaliation for filing our ADA grievances and possibly at the direction of Senator Greg Treat. The Sergeant at Arms and the Oklahoma Highway Patrolmen and women are uncomfortable with holding a key to the restroom access of disabled visitors to the building. Several guards mentioned to me they feel uncomfortable with othering and segregating others living with disabilities. Our state employees shouldn't be asked to discriminate against others. The last time my family received any help from the Oklahoma Disability Law Center has been over a year, and we cannot afford an attorney to end this. We have limited income, and I believe 11 months to respond to a letter isn't typical for the ODLC. And we are now wondering if this issue has also been made political with members of the ODLC. This is not a political issue, but has been made one by many, and it only hurts our son and other disabled visitors to the building. He is old enough now to know when he's being discriminated against, and he needs to be free from discrimination while visiting our Capitol. I believe a whole lot of people have lost sight. For 4 years, I've been asking for equal restroom access for my son. We encounter discrimination and hostility as a family, and it needs to end. We need help. On Thursday, June 9th, 2022, I visited the Capitol, and the key to the Sergeant at Arms had at the guard station was deactivated and did not work. After waiting, OMES had to unlock the door, bringing attention to Max's restroom access to 7 people. On Monday, Ty, my husband, and I asked the Chief Sergeant at Arms of the Senate for help, as directed by a Sergeant at Arms. Once he knew there should be accommodations in place set by attorneys, he walked away from me, and he would not talk to me, and said since the attorneys were involved, we can't get any help in the building from people who are here to help. On June 17th, 2022, we were visiting the Capitol with friends to hang locks on Max and Mickey's fence in the protest of locked restroom doors at the Capitol, and again, there was no key available for Max. This time Max was there and was directly discriminated against by having to bring it to the attention of 4 people that he needed restroom access and the key was not available. OMES had to let Max in after unnecessary wait. On June 22nd, 2022, I emailed the ODLC the videos listed above, and nearly every time my son visits the Capitol, he is discriminated against. This timeline continues as I filed an ADA grievance with the Oklahoma Department of Transportation on July 28th, 2022. To tell you more, my son Max was born with multiple and severe disabilities. Permanent nerve damage due to spina bifida affected his muscle function from his waist down. He has neurogenic bowel and is treated for a trabeculated bladder, which requires Max to be catheterized every 4 hours for bladder and kidney health. He will utilize protective undergarments without further medical intervention and is unable to stand unassisted, and until rehabilitation will require caregiver assistance with many personal tasks in life. I was aware of what to expect from Max when we stopped at the visitor center in Blackwell. However, he was directly affected by the lack of restroom access at this location, and now cause for me to contact the Oklahoma Department of Transportation to make you aware and to also file an ADA grievance. If there's specific form I need to complete, please let me know. From an observation and time spent gathering photos from our visit on July 27th, there's a solution. This barrier is removed by providing a private, safe, and appropriate place by way of an adult-sized changing table. As ADA coordinator for ODOT, you'll agree disabled visitors requiring caregiver assistance with toileting needs should never resort to the floor in a restroom or leave the building and return to a vehicle in a parking lot, park bench, or picnic table for restroom needs. That is not equal access and participation. At this location specifically, your solution quite possibly is found by installing a table in each the men and women's restroom in the event the family restroom isn't large enough. When Max is a few years older, it's socially appropriate for me as his caregiver to accompany him to a men's restroom. In that event, accommodations in a family restroom is not available. Below are 2 examples ODOT might consider. I believe you'll need an electrician to drop an outlet for its power supply. The Science Museum Oklahoma recently installed power to a similar wall, and it's cost minimal. Oklahoma wouldn't be the first Department of Transportation to implement height-adjustable adult-sized changing tables. We can look to the work of states, specifically Tennessee. The Tennessee Council on Developmental Disabilities is doing great work for its state. I hope to bring a more organized effort and awareness to Oklahoma, what's proven to be a huge undertaking alone. I recently helped the Will Rogers World Airport and many other facilities in Oklahoma, including the Oklahoma Children's Hospital, OU Health, find a solution in barrier removal. Images of their tables are attached. There's many tables coming to Oklahoma City, similar to what's pictured. By the time they're installed, there'll be more accessible restrooms in Oklahoma City than any other city in the nation. It's been a lot of work for me personally, going building to building, and it took a collaborative effort of many advocates and great leaders in this state and in Oklahoma City to make it possible. As Max's mother, I find it more and more difficult to ignore the issue and stand by complacent, as this is an issue for our family nearly every time we leave our home for an extended period of time. 4% of the population requires caregiver assistance, 400,000 Oklahomans alone. The tables are made with universal design in mind and offer access to any size person, and they eliminate the need for baby changing stations. It's been 32 years since Congress enacted the ADA, and I never realized how much work is left undone until I began living my life alongside my son. I believe Congress's intent is that all Americans have equal access, to include restroom rights. In 2016, Congress enacted the Babies Act. I'd like you to take a look at it and ask yourself why children weighing 51 pounds or larger aren't offered the same explicit federal protection as those weighing 50 pounds or less. I'd say Congress has failed a large population of Americans. Those needing caregiver assistance with toileting issues require a table have been left to how one might interpret what equal access means. I believe Max has the same restroom rights as babies do in our federal buildings. I hope you'll agree. Disability etiquette and awareness training is always a good idea, and as ADA coordinator for ODOT, I know you are aware of how easily discrimination is preventable by professional development alone. I called on all locations one afternoon and had one state employee ask that if I bring a blanket with me to change him on the floor in a restroom. As you might imagine, this is a very common response I receive, quite sadly. One state employee directing any visitor to the floor in the restroom is too many. I'd like you to know that all those I've spoken with have been very kind and helpful. I have yet to find a state employee that has been anything short of hospitable with the information they have. This is a silent issue in society many are unaware of, and I promise you'll never see a restroom the same after meeting me. You'll begin to see through my eyes, possibly, and what other options are offered to Max and so many others with similar needs. You might start to wonder why it's gone so long without notice, or maybe you've known about this issue and we can have a conversation about ableism and how deeply rooted it is in Oklahoma. My experience with the Midwest Visitor Center, you can look further into the service animal relief areas and the FAA regulations. You now might see how ridiculous it is that we're further along with restroom rights and access of service animals in this country than disabled American citizens who require caregiver assistance. It's important to consider visibility too. Families would benefit greatly from the information to be posted online that the Oklahoma Visitor Centers provide accessible restrooms for all, along with any other accommodation you might offer, like the convenience of our dog parks. It's something many don't think about, but for families like mine, planning ahead is necessary. There's a lot to chat about, and I have many more pictures, videos, and information you might need to be interested in. The goal is to remove a barrier for disabled visitors at our visitor centers, and do so in a manner that's best for Oklahomans. I'd like to share with you about my experience with leadership at the Oklahoma City Convention Center, and how our newest building, with a $288 million cost to residents, on its first day open to citizens, city leaders were made aware the building had a barrier to remove, and they immediately went to work to remove it. A table will be installed. The specific project led me to many in our exceptional city leadership, including Keith Wilkinson, ADA coordinator for Oklahoma City. He's been in his position for many years and has helped me greatly by connecting me with others, and what ultimately led me to the Oklahoma City Building Code Commission work for a better built Oklahoma. It's just a few words shy of reflecting word for word what the International Code Commission approved for its 2024 proposals. I've attached it for you. I'd like to discuss this in further detail with you, and it might be best done in person if you're available to meet with me. Mr. Wilkinson has offered his time and expertise to all who might need to discuss this further with a professional peer. He's a kind soul and welcomes your call. I'm a bit long-winded, and for that I apologize. There's a lot of information I have for you to assist the Oklahoma Department of Transportation in removing a barrier that keeps my son and many Oklahomans isolated at home, and when away from home, discriminated against by others unaware of the lack of restroom access, and what an appropriate response and action is. I've learned disability etiquette and awareness training benefits all, and is needed in all places of government and business too. It's good work, and I look forward to working with you. You can call me anytime, and thank you for your assistance and your quick response to Max's restroom need. I appreciate it. The Oklahoma Department of Transportation responded and is removing the barrier in all Oklahoma visitor centers, and are doing so with kindness and professionalism. Max's Law, House Bill 3058, will not be introduced by Representative Mickey Dollins this year, and instead by Representative Jacob Rosecrans. It needs work and title-stricken, as Max's Law was filed as a tourism bill in error. Max's Law demands support from all lawmakers, and our family demands that the political games that many politicians are playing with our son's federal rights to our publicly funded buildings end. And our lawmakers demand leadership be held accountable. Our legislator has lost sight of their job, and too often put their personal agendas before the best interests of the people. Max's Law and this journey for updated building standards affects all Oklahomans and every American, and we should demand better of those we elect to serve. Please reach out to your lawmakers today and ask that they put an end to the discriminatory practices in place in our Title II buildings in Oklahoma and support Max's Law. Thank you.